how computers work and the rules of accounting are two kind of different technical disciplines that completely do not correspond with each other. And so if you want to build an accounting system, you have to force computers or software to do unnatural things.
That's such an ambitious feat. Bootstrapped, successful ERP.
There really was a gap between QuickBooks and NetSuite. And that's kind of where we're focused on serving. No one would give us any money early. I mean, no one cared about us building a general ledger. Everyone thought it was a terrible idea. We built an efficient company so we can grow efficiently and focus more on just growing through new customer acquisition.
Welcome to Tech Finance. I'm your host, Sasha Orloff, repeat founder and current CEO of Puzzle, and self-professed finance nerd. On this show, we dive into the pulse of B2B fintech, from newly funded startups transforming the office of the CFO to major industry shifts, deals, and partnerships that are reshaping how we think about finance. You'll hear the most important developments, essential analysis, and of course, AI innovations. This show is brought to you by Puzzle and the Turpentine Podcast Network. Let's dive in. Oh, everybody. And as you know, this season, we're focusing on something that I get really excited about, which is improving accounting with software. And so we've had a couple people on the show in the last couple of weeks in the ERP space who have raised from the traditional who's who of Silicon Valley. But today we have a treat for you because this is like the renegade story. It is a bootstrapped, successful ERP called SoftLedger. And it is an amazing story from an amazing founder who I finally got to meet in real life. So Ben from Scaling New Heights, and one shout out to Joe Woodard and the amazing team at Scaling New Heights for like insanely fun and awesome community and conference. But I'm excited to introduce Ben to the rest of you and let him tell his story. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sasha, for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Cool. And one of the other fun things before we dive in is like, you always meet people. It's like nowadays, like on a Zoom call or whatever, like in person, you just have no idea how tall they are. And I'm always surprised because I'm, not the tallest person. And I'm like, oh, here's Ben, who unfortunately had like, do you have an ankle thing? You have like a boot on. You're just like towering, walking over me.
I'm good. I'm good now, but yeah, had a sprained toe for a bit, but yeah, fought through it at the conference.
Yeah, not the most ideal injury for conference times. But anyway, it was fun. It was great to meet you in real life. And I'm excited to let you tell your story a little more. So for those that are just hearing about SoftLedger for the first time, what's the quick pitch? What are you building and who's it for?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. So my background's in accounting, and going back a little over 10 years ago, I was managing a few different areas in the accounting department for a public company, and it just took too long to get the financials every month. And I figured there had to be a better way. Accountants deserve better software. Damn it, why can't we have the nice things too? And so I convinced my longtime friend, Jeff Ostrega. We've been friends since like freshman year of college. And he knows how to actually build software, which is an important component of this, of course. And we got to building this. And again, that started a little over 10 years ago. And we've just been steadily growing ever since.
Great. And then who do you sell for? What are the types of companies where SoftLedger is like a really good fit?
Sure. So for companies that have outgrown their small business accounting system and are looking at a mid-market system like Sage Intacct or NetSuite, if they've outgrown their small business accounting system because they have multiple business entities, that's where we do particularly well. It's like it's where the complexity comes up. It's not always multi-entity, but that's what we found is a continuing theme is that if you have multiple business entities and that's the reason you've outgrown your small business system, like QuickBooks, we help make that very easy.
Your CPA, you have accounting background, EY, Fannie Mae, CNA, like all the stuff. Going directly at the core, like rebuilding the core, that's crazy. Like that's such an ambitious feat, especially to do it. I know as well. I can tell you how complicated it is. Of all of the things, like why go straight to the GL?
Sure. So it was actually like this was, and I think this has helped us from the beginning, was there was this light bulb epiphany moment in the accounting department when I was closing the books. And I realized we're just stitching together all this data from disparate sources to structure it in a way that we can then export it. What we were doing is exporting it to an Excel file. And the pivot tables from that Excel file is what was the real rich financial data that management was using to make key strategic decisions. And I thought that was insane. And so I thought, I think we could rebuild this. I know it's not going to be easy, but I think if I can convince Jeff to do this, I think together we could figure out how to build a better general ledger accounting system. And it was way harder than I thought it was, but we eventually got there. And we iterated, as you know, this is not an easy type of system to build.
No. And when did you start it? You've been working on this for a while, right?
Yeah, that moment was in like April 2015. So yeah, it's been a little over 10 years. We were doing it nights and weekends for a while. We went full time in February of 2017. We got our first investment from Mucker Capital in Santa Monica, California. And then that's what brought us out to California. We were there for a while. And a few years ago, Jeff, he lives in Baltimore now, and I live in Pittsburgh. So we moved back east. But still same thing, kind of remote since the beginning, except for the first few years we were actually like living across the hall from each other in the same apartment building in Santa Monica.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a fun way to start. It was like going back to like immediately post college kind of like startup type thing, except we were 30. It
Yeah.
was interesting. Both of our wives came a little bit later. And so we started those first few months. It was just us getting, whiteboard in the living room and just iterating on the first pieces of the product.
And now you have a 10-year-old kid called SoftLedger.
That's right.
A little bit. So you mentioned on your website or on other podcasts and the research, you call yourselves the anti-ERP. What's the story there?
We were figuring out what catchphrase to come up with for our first conference. Actually, that was to go to AICPA Engage in 2017. And it was one of our investors had mentioned, what about like a riff on like the no software thing that Salesforce did? And it was that basically. And then we got there and it didn't really land for a number of reasons, but we like it. We still have some swag rolling around with anti-ERP in the storage closet. So yeah, but it's the same concept really from the beginning. It's just kind of now it's accountants deserve better software. That's really like better encapsulates why we really started the company.
Yeah, totally. I love it. You always want to have that anti-narrative really comes into play. You just went right into it. On this podcast and in the news, there's this like wave of investment in accounting software now. And you started kind of before it became a bit of the hype cycle or a bit of the sort of exciting sort of momentum right now. Even Elad Gil posted yesterday, like, this is a place that I want to see more investment. And we are very interested. But you started this again, as you mentioned, 10 years ago. How have you seen the market evolve since you started SoftLedger?
Yeah, great question. I've been, feel like I've been yelling that into a void for 10 years or and then at some point, it's really like the last maybe year and a half, 2 years. This is interesting. Okay, there's actually, I think I talked about at Scaling to Heights, but when a new accounting app would come up, I'd think, oh, another QuickBooks add-on. And then eventually it was like, oh wait, these are general ledgers. Got it. Okay, that's interesting, and that's new to me over the past couple of years. And so
Yeah.
I love it. I think that there's so much room to innovate in this area, and I've been just know the pain like so deeply from doing it in my job, and I think there could be there could be many more accounting software startups, both general ledgers and other like pieces of the within the corporate account finance and accounting department that haven't even started yet, that are really intractable, like big problems that require that domain expertise to dig into.
Nice. One of the other changes, aside from the wave of investment, and I don't know whether this is causation or correlation, but we're seeing this sort of wave of AI in the world of accounting. And so LLMs obviously didn't exist when you started SoftLedger, at least commercially as they think about today. What's your view on AI and how this sort of shifts the market and or how finance and accounting teams operate?
Obviously, top of mind right now. I like to say that we've been preparing for this since the beginning by making our system completely API programmable. To me, and I think this is for a lot of industries, but I notice it most closely in accounting is that that's my probably bias there, but that it all comes back to accountability. So let's say, Sasha, you have your CFO. Maybe you can. I'm just going to make up a scenario here. I don't know if any of this is true, but you have one CFO, and you can just do everything with that. The one CFO can AI all the things underneath, and is comfortable being accountable for the you want to expand into Canada, and they go, okay, well, it's going to cost this. You have this independent contractor versus employee relationship stuff you got to sort through, and I don't know. They go through the whole list of things you have to consider. Great, that's awesome if they can do that, but then 5 years from now you're in Canada and UK, and you're thinking about expanding into Singapore, and it's a different calculus. And now you're a bit bigger, and Singapore is going to notice and going to want their taxes, whatever. And now it's, you have to check with your tax people, and then you have to check with your treasury manager to see, okay, can we put enough money together, or do we need to raise? So it just, and this is like as I described that, it's like not that different than other automation initiatives prior. It's just that certain areas are like, like there's like gas poured on it to be like, this is not, this is different. We can automate this, but still at the end of the day, like somebody has to be accountable for various steps in the process. And I think that if you have a fully programmable GL or fully programmable ERP, you can, that's the right type of software to build in that accountability alongside the great stuff that's happening with AI. So I think it's kind of like, it's a mix. I think actually Aaron, the founder of Box, had a great tweet on this yesterday that was, it captured this better than I could have described myself, but it is around like how much software needs to be built around all this great stuff that's happening with AI to make it do what we want and be predictable and kind of, there's a lot to do in just the boring old business process software space as well.
And so you primarily sell to in-house finance teams, is that right?
That's right. Yep. And then partner with outsourced accounting firms that are basically, serving as those finance and accounting teams as well.
Hey, we'll get back to the conversation in a moment after a word from our sponsors. All right. One of my favorite tools that I use and we use is Notion. Notion is used by thousands of startups around the world as their connected workspace for everything from engineering specs to new hire onboarding to fundraising. Notion has a special offer for listeners. 6 months of free Notion with unlimited AI, value of over $6,000. So you can access the limitless power of AI right inside of Notion to build and scale your company and team with one tool. Get 6 months free of Notion with unlimited AI, along with custom templates when you apply for notion.com/startups/puzzle. Once again, that's notion.com/startups/puzzle. Go for it. Building a company is hard enough. You shouldn't have to second guess your numbers too. One day, an investor might ask you a question that you just can't answer. The next, you realize your books aren't as clean as you thought. Sound familiar? Puzzle is rethinking accounting from the ground up with an AI-first ledger that eliminates repetitive tasks and gives you real-time financial clarity so you can focus on running your business, not fixing spreadsheets. Accounting should work the way you do, fast, intuitive, and built for the future. Come check us out at puzzle.io. Right, and so ideally, those people are being paid by the company to have accountability in the world. Do you think, like, how are you thinking about AI in your project? Have you used it yet? Is it on the roadmap? Is it live? How do you think about this wave?
Yeah, I mean, well, internally we've used it quite a bit for a while now, and it is just for product development. It's absolutely insane. I'm sure you know too, just how much faster we're moving, even in the past like 6 to 9 months, as a result of AI. And then in customer service, it helps us scale, a high level of customer service, 24/7. That's been great as well. So our approach really with AI is internally is to make it, you can make any model available to be interoperable with our software. And so like that's the direction I see this going, is really, and if there is, as we do that and learn, okay, that's a great product idea to go into our general ledger, then there could be things that come around that. I expect that there will be. But for now, I think allowing our customers and our partners to experiment with the models that they're already using and then use that to interact with our system. Actually, I'll use a great example. At Scaling New Heights, I wouldn't say surprising. It was just like reaffirming of like, this is like kind of my love for accounting in the first place was, I talking to a lot of these accounting firm owners, and a lot of these are small firms. They came there very interested in what they can do with AI, and it's not like they're just waiting around like, okay, I'm going to learn what someone says we should do. They were in there from day one, experimenting, seeing what they can do themselves. And so I thought that was interesting in that it means that if there's some task, whatever it is, whether it's coding transactions or whatever, and they can go from spending 3 days on it to 2 hours, they're going to do that. And then it starts to chip away at all those together. And eventually, I think there's something we can't predict that's going to happen for sure. But that for now, in the near term, I see this just more and more of that, and pushing and pulling data to and from our existing systems. I think we got a long road to run on that.
I agree. And I actually think one of the benefits of that is we're still in such an accelerated phase of capabilities of AI. And it's still surprising to me that we see people out there, including, I think, QuickBooks saying, we're going to build our own models and we're going to train it on all of our own data. And I was like, you guys, GPT-5 is out and you're going to now adapt and like beat the people pushing the market. Like, I think that's crazy. So I think your approach is one that, as I'm sitting in San Francisco, of course, we get in our own bubble of like, we could do all this stuff. It's like, just take a rational approach to like actually serving what the customers need and letting the best people to build the best AI, build the best AI and apply it into the systems.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, you see Claude's better at certain things. ChatGPT is better at certain things. Grok is better at certain things. You mix and match and use and then also the other benefit of this is we don't have to figure out the pricing model and how the economics work. I thought that was, I didn't think about that initially, but it was a nice add-on to it. Is it starts to complicate everything. Or a SaaS offering now, we're going to bring in AI and try. It makes it easier from that standpoint as well.
I think the other part that is really good is by enabling the best technology to win that is outside of the scope of the GL and the accounting offering is, if there is a hallucination, it doesn't get put onto the SoftLedger brand. Like, you use this model, we enabled this to happen, you typed your prompt, you did the things that you wanted, and we're here to help enable that to like happen and exist. But like, you don't hold the blame if there happens to be a hallucination.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Yeah, and that is like, bring it back to what this type of software is designed for. Is it's designed for a super green day one accountant to come in and make a mistake and then have somebody review it and update it, and that's all tracked via audit logs and segregation of duties for user permissions and that sort of thing. And whether man or machine, you're subject to the same types of controls. Obviously, that they can work a lot differently if you're a LLM using them, but that concept, I think, is important. Yeah, to keep it separate, and then what goes in is kind of governed by the internal control environment within the system and the company.
So we have a lot of listeners that are CFOs and internal finance teams, which means probably a good portion of them are using Sage or NetSuite today. What makes your software sort of fundamentally different than these other softwares that exist out there?
Every company on the planet needs an accounting system. That's the starting point. Every organization on the planet. And some organizations have hundreds of accounting systems, actually, big ones. And so, yeah, that's probably a separate thing. As I came to learn that as we grew, is, these Fortune 100 companies do not have one general ledger. They bought companies and they roll up, and there's those whole initiatives to consolidate everything. And so, I guess the point here is if you're a larger, more complex enterprise, NetSuite or Sage Intacct is going to be a better fit for you, because I like to describe it as like the depth of tables that is necessary to run your business. So if like a vendor has, 8 different addresses and there's all these complex relationships depending on like how you interact with them, you might need a NetSuite to do that. And that could be the best solution. If you are like you've outgrown QuickBooks and you're just a little bit more complicated, you want a little bit more control, you need to have real financials that are auditable and easy to produce those. Like that's who we're going after. And we provide an economical way to do that. And like, it's very product focused. You could DIY it if you want. We're here if you need, like that sort of approach. The other thing I think that hopefully is a learning about like the new entrants in the space is like, there's a lot of room to run here. This is a massive market. There's so if we figure out who we are and kind of the spots we are in, I think there's not a reason to have sharp elbows around the different. There's a lot of even industry specific cases to focus on that I think we'll just see more and more of that evolve as it gets easier to build software and easier to support industry specific use cases to really hone in on those. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Is like there really was a gap between QuickBooks and NetSuite, and that's kind of where we're focused on serving.
Yeah, can you like bring like who are some of your customers? Tell us some of the stories about why they chose you and some of the benefits they're starting to see.
Yeah, one of our oldest customers, we did a testimonial with them on our website, is a company named EcoG Energy, and they install solar panels on the roofs and of buildings and other like just properties all over the country. And each new property has to be its own entity, and so it was really tricky to manage that, because prior the director of accounting there, Clayton, and he's got a little testimonial on our website. So you can hear directly from his words instead of mine, but he was going through and going into each entity and out, into each entity and out at the end of the week. And it took forever. And now it's just a lot quicker. It just is so much easier to go between each entity and see everything together, separate as needed. And so they had, over 100 entities when they started, and they've only grown, since then. So it takes a long time to do all that. And so, like that type of, that type of case where the complexity comes up because of the multiple entities is one. And I think, I'm sure you've seen this too. That's where it starts to break if everything is disjointed.
Wow. So when you mean multiple entities, this could be lots of multiple entities, like 100 plus. That's insane.
It could be thousands. It could be, especially if you're going to do it in an API programmable way. It starts to change how you think of how you'd structure that. And financial services, you have a few different entities in different countries that are allowing you to do cross-border payments, and now you have foreign currencies to deal with, and then investment management companies or holding companies. They aren't necessarily that complicated in any one entity, but in the consolidation of them is.
Yeah. All right. So that makes sense. Like a solar power. I see real estate also similarly, where you want to spin up a bunch of these other entities. What are some other examples of customers or testimonials that you've worked with that you want to call out?
Sure. Yes. So we have a partner, Arc Financial, that they work with family offices, and they're really happy with how easy it is to manage the multiple entities for those families, which they have. A single family office could have a smattering of any type of different mix of assets. So it could be, a couple multifamily properties. All of a sudden, somebody decides to buy a winery. That has to go in, or whatever the case is. There's a boat. Is the boat its own entity? Is the boat with the other boat? And you just kind of have to wrangle this all together and have it in a simple, like clean view. And in that case, you don't necessarily have these stringent external reporting requirements. You don't have the same types of needs as a a public entity, or even a heavily funded private entity that has 50 distinct business entities. You just want to see it all in one place and be able to wrap your head around where everything is and have a clear picture of your performance and financial position at a given time.
That's great. So I'm sure after doing this for quite a while, you've seen sort of both your product grow, you've seen the future press go. I'd love to hear, like, what was something that was surprising to you when you were like, all right, I'm going to start SoftLedger, right? You're in the apartment, you guys are jamming and you're going, and you're like, this is what the future is going to look like. What's something that surprised you in the journey?
Yeah. What a big surprise was how computers work, and the rules of accounting are two kind of different technical disciplines that completely do not correspond with each other. And so if you want to build an accounting system, you have to force computers or software to do unnatural things for a software application. And that was really important to force that to happen as we built the product. And I think maybe, as nebulous as that might be, like that was really the reason why it was so hard to build in the first place. Why I think that it's so hard. Every general ledger building initiative is we got to skip a lot of steps by just it being me and Jeff iterating, and me going, I think it's like this. Let me get some more info. Okay. Yeah, it is. Okay. And just making decisions quickly and getting it mostly right. And, right enough that we could fix the things that were wrong and iterate and then build the ultimate product. But I think without having a strong opinion on, because I know it's an important product thing, is the strong opinion that could be wrong from the beginning to force into every decision as you build the system. I think that's so important for something like a general ledger.
I remember, just as an anecdote, so I'll tee this up and turn it right back to you, that something very surprising to me as more of a product software person, not a CPA, was that when I started thinking through the evolution of just a simple bank rec. I have one bank account and I want to do the reconciliation in a month. And so I started off with all right, well, let's get all the transactions in there. All right, well, now we can sort them into the ins and outs. All right, well, now we need the beginning balance and the ending balance. And you walk through all the way through to what was the end state look like? And I was like, the end state is can you just do the let's just have software do the reconciliation for me. Again, it doesn't always work out, but you can some of the times. And so we just built this, and it was hey, it reconciled. Of course, then you throw it in front of an accountant, and their first thing is I don't trust your software to show me every step along the way. So we worked all this time to make this clean UX to just remove the complexity behind the scenes. And they were like,
no, I want to see everything. So we had to spend like another couple like months designing this like step function like along the way. Again, you're probably listening to this and probably other listeners like, yeah, duh. But like what that was a big surprising evolution to me. Um,
That same thing happened at the beginning. Even us starting off, we got this really slick design at the time, like sleek, kind of minimalist, and it didn't look like it did anything to the accounts we were selling to. So went through the same process. It's got to be familiar enough. It could be new, but it's got to be familiar enough that it's clear that it's a robust. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
I've had a lot of battles with our design team. Sometimes it's like let's look at how QuickBooks does it, and they're like, I don't like this at all. It sucks. So like design. And I was like, okay, there are some things that it actually like, even if we believe it's worst principles of design and it is confusing, and this is just kind of how accountants have been doing it for so long. Let's start with it. Not in most cases, but in some cases for especially edge case handling. Let's just make it look the same, make it look fairly similar. And we do that, and then we just like slowly tweak and evolve it to like bring people along the journey. But I think it's the same way. It's design can really impact this. And if you remove too much of it and make like a really slick, beautiful design, like we see in other types of software, it actually feels counterintuitive because like all this magic is happening behind the scenes, but it doesn't feel like it. And so you don't get any credit for all of the like awesome stuff you're building.
Yeah, for sure. That's been some of the most complex pieces of the platform. A lot's happening in the background, and yeah, taking credit for that in the UI without making it too messy is a non-trivial exercise.
Yeah, we actually could charge more by making the UX look a little bit more complicated because people are like, oh my God, all this like amazing stuff is happening behind the scenes. I value all of this like effort you're putting into it. Where when it was like super clean, people were like, what's happening? I don't know. Like it's anyway. Well, I'm right. What's one of the things what do you think is one of your like kind of customers' favorite features? What's the stuff that you constantly hear about? And I use this only because again, we have all these CFOs, finance people on the call. Like I'm sure there's a bunch of like really kind of magical experiences or moments that you have that customers really like.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of little things. We could say a lot of the same things other accounting software do, but really, I mean, the multi-entity consolidation for multiple entities, multiple currencies all over the world, making that process that can never be easy. So I won't promise that it's going to be like a piece of cake, but a lot simpler and more manageable is like really the key thing for us. And just the aha moment is like toggling between the entities right in the platform and seeing a real-time consolidation, which is like kind of a foreign concept. It's always an add-on or some separate thing. No, it's real-time, consolidated view. And then there's obviously at the end of the month, there's some consolidation processes that need to run, but you have a view of your financials without having to wait for the close at the end of the month is really the biggest thing. And then, it's fully API programmable. Everything's very intuitive, like all the things that we built in across the board, but really it's the multi-ND and multi-currency management is the biggest piece.
Yeah. And the thing that I like about, aside from just the excitement for people watching instead of just listening on your face of like this part, because I know how hard it is to do this and you know how complicated it is. And everybody who's listening that's ever dealt with a multi-entity like knows how complicated it is by focusing and having this like kind of really important both kind of bottleneck and feature in there. Like you can make it much more magical and primary than somebody who's like, oh, it is a feature of our offering versus like this is the thing. And it's so multi-entity consolidation is so painful.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it took a while for us to really hone in on this being the thing. And then you look at your customer base and you realize like, well, these customers, like they're not multi-entity. And there's something that you need to really realize the value of what you're paying, like, and have everything come together in this magical way, like you described, is having the multi-entities all together. If you're small and you're a single entity, maybe QuickBooks makes more sense, or Puzzle, obviously. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. I think early on, obviously we accept all customers. We go, okay, yeah, like we're gonna sort through it and figure out what works well, and that's, yeah, I think that's been so important to hone in on the key piece of functionality that really keeps people happy, because then, yeah, you can make that better. And there is no shortage of things to do with foreign currencies and multi-entity and the OCI, cumulative translation adjustment at the end of there's all this stuff that is really difficult to solve, especially in a simple way. And so, yeah, by focusing on that, we know that we do that better than anyone.
One of the other things as we start talking about features is that sometimes from building software, there's a feature that as the founder, you really love. And it might not get that like shout out social media case study attention, but you're just like really proud or excited about like some piece of functionality. Do you have that at all with SoftLedger? Just something that you personally are like, man, I love this. I like how we designed this thing, or I like that we built this like one thing that might not be a hero feature, but you just like want to call it that you have a lot of pride about.
Yeah, this is the one that I think, when I'm talking to my people on the phone, I know like this is really going to be appreciated is in software where it's like you're used to like a lot of non-accountants using it and you have to make it easy for them. There's this tendency to like abstract away the complexity that comes with the journal entry. And for us, we put the journal entries front and center. Like you go in, very easy to like to book a journal entry, very easy to see every journal entry in just this giant table. And that report to just easily go and see every single journal entry line is so useful. And it's this thing that if you saw it, could just come into this, you'd be like, this is just a report with a bunch of with a bunch of rows in it and a bunch of columns. But it's so important to have that at your fingertips with the multiple general ledger dimensions and other pieces to slice and dice your data downstream. That was really the thing that I wanted to recreate easily, like during that epiphany I had 10 plus years ago when that led to starting the company, is like getting that to be that table, which I know behind the scenes it's not really what came to life. It's a bunch of pieces working together, but having that visualization at your fingertips is really helpful as an accountant.
I love it. It's like one of my favorite things. It's like these, because like, once you get sort of big enough, you don't get to build these kind of things, or you don't get to appreciate it, or sometimes design abstracts away some of the complexity and you just make this simple thing, but it's like this challenge to build. So I love that. On this, there's a little bit of a shift. You've taken a slightly different path than some of the new incumbents, which are raising these like whopping rounds from venture capital. Talk us a little bit at how you thought about both what was the history of the fundraising of this story, and why did you take that path?
Well, I'd love to tell you I had tremendous foresight, but it really, no one would give us any money early. I mean, no one cared about us building a general ledger. Everyone thought it was a terrible idea. And so I found that my efforts were better spent on getting customers up on the platform and iterating. And we did that. And by kind of growing steadily doing that, we built a great product. It would have been a lot tougher if we just, had 100 customers sign up at once to like change things and build all the change management that comes with that. So it actually led to a better product over time. And it led to us concentrating on what really mattered. And that's why we've kind of, become this efficient company. And now we don't need to. And so that's like the funny thing is now it's like, okay, this is obviously a big investment area, but we've built an efficient company so we can grow efficiently and focus more on just growing through new customer acquisition.
And so is the 2.1 million that was announced the only raise that you've done?
It's 2.6 to date. So we went through a couple of, so Mucker and then a couple other early investors, another startup accelerator we went through, Forum Ventures, and then some angel investors as well. And then we raised in 2021 we raised from Naples Technology Ventures. That was the $2 million raise on top of that to 2.1.
Wow. Well, the best type of capital is revenue from your customers. And I think you get to shout out that like one of your main differentiators is you're profitable and you're there to serve customers, right? So you're not going away, you're not going anywhere. And the only thing that matters, because it's literally your capital strategy, is making your customers super happy. And I think that's a really important differentiation to call out in the space.
Yeah, that's it's really, I mean, listening to our customers, iterating on their feedback, making them happy. That it's helpful every time you kind of go through a rough patch in growing the company. You just go back and talk to your customers, figure out what they need, make them happy, keep on doing that, and it's led to our success over time.
Well, congrats, that's exciting. What do you think the next sort of 12 to 18 months looks like at SoftLedger? What are you the most excited about? What are you looking forward to?
I'm really excited about talking to outsourced accounting firms or CAS practices, outsourced account, whatever they call that group that is doing the books for their clients on an ongoing basis, working with them, partnering with them, growing that together, because it's, we've grown almost entirely to date through inbound, largely through SEO. And it's, this is a way to kind of continue to do that, the force multipliers that come with working with firms, and now we get to focus on really making that firm and their end clients happy. It allows us to focus a lot more. So over the next 12 to 18 months, I expect to be that to become a much more meaningful part of our business. Obviously, we met at Scaling New Heights. We're going to be going to some events, talking to partners there, and then just adding some more integrations, some things that we haven't been able to get to yet. But a lot of the core functionality I'm pretty happy about is behind us. So all of the really big core pieces of functionality we're through, and that took some time. So now we can focus a lot more on the integrations that we've kind of not prioritized yet, but will be coming soon.
Nice. Well, this is exciting. It is a complicated piece of software, and having sort of the core reliability behind you and lets you focus on building these moments of delight for customers or continue to expand the market and think of new places is exciting. I think the market is excited. We'll welcome you with open arms, as it is a big market. And, I can give my personal NPS stories about NetSuite another time, or for everybody listening. There isn't a number low enough for how painful that piece of software is. So I'm excited that there's more people playing in this market. Actually, we're the more people. I'm excited that you have opened up the market probably for the rest of us. So for the finance leaders or the accounting leaders who are out there, who are burned out on outdated tools or whatever, what's your message to them?
If you have multiple entities, or if you're an accounting firm that's serving multi-entity clients, we can help get them off of their multiple QuickBooks Online instances, and even those entities that live on a sheet of paper somewhere that aren't systemized. We can get those all into one platform in a single pane, so you can consolidate easily. You can build that into your processes, and yes, there's new options now. I encourage you to take a look at what's out there. But if you have multiple business entities, this is something we've been focused on for a little over 10 years now, and I like to think we do it particularly well.
Nice. Cool. And then for those of you out there sitting on your old QuickBooks desktop instance, managing multiple entities through whatever other tools, and just like this resonates, where can they learn more about the product?
Sure. Yeah. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us on softledger.com, and you can always email me at ben@softledger.com. We can hop on and have a quick chat. I'm happy to show you the product too.
Awesome. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show. Congrats on everything you've built.
Thanks again for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Tech Finance with Puzzle and Turpentine. If you got value from this episode, please share it with anybody building or funding the future of technology. And please leave us a review wherever you're listening and tell me about what you want to hear more of. If you're looking for accounting software you'll actually love to power your company, check out Puzzle.io, the modern accounting platform for the AI era. Tech Finance is part of Turpentine, the awesome podcast network behind Econ 102 with Noah Smith, Turpentine VC, Complex Systems with Patrick McKenzie, and so many more.